when someone accidentally threw away the school play costumes,
oh no!
replacements were shipped with FedEx. And with picture proof of delivery, everyone could focus on the perfect opening night. FedEx, where now meets next. For residential delivery only.
Apple Card is the credit card created by Apple. You earn 3% daily cash back up front when you use it to buy a new iPhone 15, AirPods, or any products at Apple. And you can automatically grow your daily cash at 4.15% annual percentage yield when you open a high-yield savings account. Apply for Apple Card in the Wallet app on iPhone. Apple Card subject to credit approval. Savings is available to Apple Card owners subject to eligibility. Savings accounts by Goldman Sachs Bank USA, member FDIC. Terms apply.
The holidays are coming. Find a gift for someone special with jewelry from Blue Nile. Right now, Blue Nile is offering special Black Friday and Cyber Monday deals. Save up to 50% on the season's most stunning trends. Blue Nile offers an endless selection of bold gold styles, gemstone jewelry, and classic diamond pieces. And now, for a limited time, get 36 months special financing on minimum purchases of $1,000. Restrictions apply. See BlueNile.com for details. That's BlueNile.com.
Hello and welcome to a new podcast, The Paddock and The Pavilion with Stephen Wallace. In each show, Stephen will interview someone connected to the world of horse racing or cricket.
Hello everyone, today's guest is not a cricketer or a jockey, but actor Robert Bathurst, a star of Cold Feet and Downton Abbey, who is a keen horse racing fan. Thank you very much for joining me, Robert, or should I say David Marsden, Sir Anthony Strallan or Sergeant Wilson?
I'll answer to anything. Hello. Good morning. Good morning, Stephen.
Well, thank you very much for joining me on The Paddock and The Pavilion. I wanted to start by asking you about the film, the new film, The Fall, which you co-directed with Nathan Horrocks, my guest on episode 68. How did you get involved in the film?
Someone heard that I was a fan of racing, and Nathan had created this idea. As he'll have explained to you, he wanted to write something which recognised the pressure that jockeys are under, his former weighing room colleagues. And two of the weighing room colleagues lost their lives, killed themselves last year. And he felt that he wanted to write something which reflected the pressure that jockeys are under. He rang me up to talk about playing a character on the telephone who was a trainer. So we got talking about the script. And we just sort of chatted about it, and I said that these things sometimes work better if the drama comes first and the message comes second. And anyway, we ended up collaborating on it and looking at the script and reworking it. And well, it's his creation, but I just sort of chipped in really. And then I asked him if he'd ever directed actors before. There were two characters in it. There's the jockey and his partner. And he said he hadn't. He makes really high-end documentary work for Equine Productions, but he hasn't done drama before. And I asked him if he'd ever directed actors. He said he hadn't. I said, well, I'll do it. And so he said, once, he went, not sure about this, but then he seemed to come around to that idea. And we collaborated fully on it. It's always his project. It's never, there's no land grab here. It's entirely Nathan's creation. And I just contributed to it and collaborated with him. So, we rewrote it and co-directed it.
And is it a big challenge being the co-director and playing a part in the film?
Well, the part, it was on the telephone. So I there's the trainer. There was no great conflict there. I hadn't directed before. I hadn't directed on telly before. And I had no desire to be in front of the camera, really, for the first time in my life, really. I suddenly realized, oh, gosh, this is good. Enjoying this. And we were working with two really good actors, Daniel Thrace and Chloe Wade. And I really enjoyed just trying to make the beats of the drama work. I don't know if they do or not, in other people's opinion, but people seem to be very pro the film, the ones who've seen it. And I think there is a message in it. But I think what I wanted to ensure was that there was, in the 20 minutes we had, we told the story, and the message comes through the drama.
And do you think being a keen racing fan, it helped you co-direct the film?
I've always been fascinated by the world of racing. I'm not a great gambler. I don't bet punt heavy at all. So my net contribution, as Geoffrey Bernard, the sports writer, used to call it, the Joe Correll Benevolent Fund, was what he used to contribute to every day. So my contribution to the equivalent of the Joe Correll Benevolent Fund was pretty meager, but my interest in the game is enormous. I mean, especially in the jumps, although increasingly in the flat. Actually, I've been very, very drawn to the flat this year, especially listening to the Nick Nuck Daily podcast. I don't know if you've listened to that, but it's
certainly do. Yes, yeah,
brilliant daily summation of what's going on in the flat, which I've always found too confusing to really engage with. But anyway, he's opened that up for me. It's I've always loved the game. I love the journalism of it. I love the language of racing. I love the characters in it. I like the smell of it. And so when Nathan wanted to talk about it, this idea, I literally jumped at it, and I thought this would be really, really interesting to be part of.
And do you think it sends out a good message? Because I interviewed, funny enough, Paige Fuller, the National Hunt jockey, in episode 67, and she talked about some of the online abuse which she seems to just brush aside as a jockey.
Yeah, I mean, people are perpetually online. I mean, my generation aren't particularly, and so we aren't aware of quite the intensity of living your life online. And when it's the playground, it's the equivalent of a global playground where you get bullied and shouted at and screamed at and torn apart. And so somehow you've got to cope. You've got to cope in the playground. You've got to cope on Twitter somehow. And with the whole Safi Osman thing as well. Her reaction was oh, Dad, why make a fuss? This is just part of it, of course, but it's wrong. I mean, it's wrong in any context, that sort of behaviour. And if you're dealing with, you can tip people over. And I think when things aren't going well, and that's what interests me about the whole sort of jockey thing is how on their own they are. I mean, they've been in the yard trying to get rides from a very early age, and if things go wrong, you can spiral, and that's something that Nathan's acutely aware of, and something that I've been reading about. And so, yeah, the online abuse that they get is not just racing, but there's a particular pressure, I think, that jockeys are under, which is a sort of combination of all sorts of things, including diet. And so it just fascinates me as a sort of cocktail of things that go on to gnaw away at a jockey's mental well-being.
And as an actor, you must have some pressure when you go on their opening night at the theatre. Not quite the same, but there must be some pressure there.
Yeah, it's nothing like it. I mean, nothing like taking beaches. I do sometimes when you're on a first night, and yeah, of course the nerves take on, and you think before you go on stage, that moment before you go on stage, you do think, well, who needs to do bungee jumping? But there's no physical threat, by and large, in acting. It's a much more sedate and less threatening environment than hurling yourself at a chase fence at 30 miles an hour.
Well, let's just move on to your, as you say, your love of racing. You're born in Ghana in 1957, and you moved to Ireland 2 years later. Was Ireland the key to your interest in horse racing?
Well, I grew up in Ireland until I was about 10. I remember going to the Curragh, and I remember being, I got this sort of snapshot of this little thing in my mind of sitting next to the fence and seeing that whoosh and that blaze of colour and everything like that. And I remember that very vividly. And I was at school, and there were all sorts of racing people there and things. And so yeah, probably. I've never done therapy. This is probably my first therapy session, Stephen. So bill me later. So I imagine that my time in Ireland was probably something to do with it. I don't know. But it was later, really, that I got into it. I remember on the when colour television came in, my cousin's family, who were much better off, they had a colour TV, and we used to go down there on Boxing Day. I was so excited. Must have been the King George, watching racing for the first time in colour. It was so exciting, and I just always adored it. The colour has been very much it is part of the game, and is one of the great appealing attractions of it. And not just the colour of the silks, but the colour of the white rails and the green of the turf. And so watching it for the first time, I remember that very clearly. So yeah, I've always been drawn to racing to some degree, and then more particularly through the writing of Alistair Down, Bruff Scott, and people, and reading about it, and devouring the Racing Post all winter. It's sort of developed from there over the last sort of 20, 30 years or so.
So when you went to Cambridge, did you not then go to Newmarket races a few times? Were you sneaking off lessons and things like that?
I wasn't into it then particularly. And actually, I went to Newmarket. I was working somewhere. I don't know where I was doing it. But I thought I'd go in the autumn. I went to Newmarket to go to the museum. I think things may have changed since then, so I don't want to malign them. But I went in there, and they said, no, racing is over. And it was something like sort of November. And I said, I'm sorry. They said, it's closed. Racing is finished. I said, there's a big card of jump racing this very day. How can you say racing is finished? And of course, racing in Newmarket is over as far as they're concerned. But anyway, they let me in, which was very, very kind. So no, when I was at university, I wasn't up doing that at all. And the interest really developed much later.
Well, I can assure you that the National Horse Racing Museum moved in 2016 when it was reopened by the Queen, and is open 12 months of the year now, and you must go along and see it. We'll go again. I mean, I really enjoyed going there last time. As I say, they gave me a sneak into illegal entry, so I did have a good look around. Yeah. You've already alluded to it a bit already, but what is it you like about racing? You said you like jump racing more than flat racing. Well, I just like following the careers of horses, and I've never really until recently sort of had to got a handle on the pattern of racing in on the flat, and it's always I just love following a horse for 8 years. Which you can with jump racing, can't you? Which you do with jumps, and so it's and I've not particularly drawn to speed. I'm not sort of I don't like driving fast. I'm not that fussed about 5 and 6 and 7 furlong races. I'm more increasing. The more you sort of get to know about it, the more interesting it becomes. But anyway, my taste is for the jump, because you can follow the careers of that, and the stories are very rich. And so I just like standing up by a jump. It's basic, really basic. My interest in it. It's sort of sensual in many ways. Because you stand by the jumps, and it's so exciting. It's fantastically exciting, and there's this huge danger. And of course, the participants are in great peril, and they're doing that for our entertainment and sport. And it's also I think I love the sportsmanship of it, and the fact that I know it's facile to say it, but I can't think of another sport where you even the champions have to reckon on losing 80% of the time. And you've got to have an attitude to losing, which most participants in the sport just couldn't tolerate. And people in racing have to be really good losers, and the wins are so intense as a result. And I love seeing that, and I love witnessing that. And that ties in well with the film The Fall. How often do you get to go racing? Are you when you're filming and things, do you arrange filming sometimes so you can sneak off to the races? I do occasionally. Yeah, I do. I mean, when I'm abroad, I like doing it as well. And, I landed in Cape Town. The first thing I did was went to Kenilworth, and but it was just slightly depressing because I was only one of about 100 people there. And of course, the whole thing was being done for the benefit of the shops. But I went out to the start. I love going out to the start. I went out to the start of the race, and it was absolutely chaotic in the stalls there, and sort of handlers breaking their leg and things like that. And it was. But then also we went to the least atmospheric race course
in the world, I suspect. I mean, there might be a competition here, but in Malaysia, I went out towards the Cameron Highlands. There's a course called, I think it's Perak, which is an old mining town. Huge stand, almost empty. And no one's allowed even to go into only owners and trainers are allowed anywhere near the paddock. We might as well have been standing in, everybody were looking at the screens. Those who were there in the stand weren't even looking at the racing out there. It was just going on sort of way in the distance out there. But even that had a fantastic atmosphere in the betting, in the people, the lots of screaming and shouting in the stand, and people taking bets, and the tellers. There were a few sort of tote things like that, but the tellers were taking bets with marker pens on their forefinger, and they had a sort of bus conductor's leather pouch with cash in it. And I'm not quite sure how the bets were taken, how the bets were settled. It's unlike any race meeting I've ever been to. But so wherever I am, I try and find a meeting, and been in Australia and been to Ascot and Perth, and
I've been there. I've been to Ascot and Perth. It's a lovely course. Yeah,
isn't it? Yeah.
And who have been your racing, or who have been your racing heroes, like both jockeys and trainers, and horses?
The racing heroes initially are the journalists and the writers, and the ones who can get the hairs on the back of your neck standing with a description of a day. So I mean, I was sort of really getting into it sort of around the time of Moscow Flower and Jessica Harrington and Barry Geraghty but also I just like reading about it, sort of Jeffrey Archer and Jeffrey Archer. What am I talking?
He's getting a plug there.
Yeah, quite. Yeah, sort of Fred Archer and people, and all those stories, so yeah. I mean, there's countless owners, trainers, and people like that. I take. I'm not involved. I'm not enmeshed in the world. I'm a complete outsider. And as a fan, I sort of slightly guilty about the fact that I don't sort of contribute. And whenever you meet a trainer, the subtext of any conversation with a trainer is, "Do you want to share in this?" I've got this horse here like that. And actually, I went to, when we were filming The Fall, I went to Seven Barrows and to Sherwood's. But Jerry McGrath invited me to Seven Barrows, and I said to him, "Look, I will come on condition that Nicky Henderson is not rubbing his hands with glee at my empty wallet." And he said, no problem at all. Anyway, they were really hospitable, and there I was in the Land Rover with Nicky Henderson and AP and all that, and it was just so exciting. I just love being in the yard, and of course, inevitably, the subject of a share in this horse came up. Of course, it's his job. Anyway, so Jerry didn't get a commission that day, unfortunately, but I had the best fun. And
do you get to Cheltenham, and have you been to the Grand National?
Yeah, I've been to both. Yeah, I like small meetings as well. I mean, I love going to Plumpton, and So I mean, the crowds at Cheltenham, they're really on really packed days when 60,000 are in there. It's pretty tight, and I sort of it's fun. But I mean, Cheltenham, I adore it. Of course, it worries me that, as with many people who follow the game, that everything is about Cheltenham, and you just wish that the other major winter events had people were aiming just as hard at those, but. So yeah, I've been to Cheltenham, been to the National, and I just go there to inhale, really.
And you presented some prizes at Royal Ascot the other year as well. I saw you in your top hat online. Yeah,
I did present a prize for, and it was rather enjoyable because the guy I was giving it to, you do the sort of the cheesy thing like that, to camera, and he said, "I don't smile. I'm from Yorkshire." He said. So it was, that was fun. And Ascot have been really good to us, actually. In the fall, they gave us a lot of support, and they gave us the weighing room, and to do the top and tail scenes of the film. And we're launching it there, I think, on the 2nd of October. I think we're doing an after racing launch of the film at Ascot, and they're giving us facilities for that. So they've been great supporters of us.
Now, you said you didn't want to be an owner yourself, but James Nesbitt, who you starred in Cold Feet with, he's been quite a successful owner himself then.
He did, yeah. Not Moscow Flower, was it?
Riverside Theatre.
Yeah. Riverside Theatre. Well, yeah, absolutely got the right there. And yeah, I mean, Jimmy's not. I don't think he's owning anymore. I mean, once you've with your first horse, you get a major event at Cheltenham. It's and the ride. I mean, the ride that Barry Geraghty gave him on that one was staggering and forceful and brilliant. So yeah, no, he's had a great fun. We did. I went. Yeah, I took the cast. I suggested that we all went off one year to Chester when we were filming Cold Feet, and we had a blast there. And then the following year, Mike Bullen wrote an episode where my character buys a horse as a present for Karen, his wife, and she's very unimpressed. So we had another day at in the middle of the maelstrom of Chester in May, I think it was.
I was going to ask, had you played any horse racing roles, but you just told me there. So.
Well, as an owner, yeah. I did. I was doing a show in Chichester once, and Dorothy Tewton was in it. So she was out. We were all in the middle. It was the Chichester Festival Theatre Handicap, I think it was, and I sort of turned. I'm rather clumsy, and I in the paddock I turned around and I very nearly trod on Willie Carson, and so I thought, well, I'll use that, and so we put that into the Cold Feet thing where a jockey sort of comes past me at sort of at that height, and I sort of I turn around and he goes flying, and I don't even notice it. So we stuck that in from my time in the paddock at Chichester.
And Robert, you also told me off air that you like cricket as well.
I've always loved cricket. Yeah, exactly. I remember aged about 8, doing an off spinner which clipped the off stump, and I was hooked ever since. Really.
Did you play at school, or do you just watch?
I played at school. I was a sort of very steady opener, nothing flash. I had a good offside and a rubbish onside. If it was wide outside, it was on the off. I could cut it handsomely, but try an on drive and I just fall over.
And do you ever get to see a test match or get to Lord's, places like that?
Yeah, no, I do. I love going to the games, I've always I've always adored it, and I used to, like so many people, watch it on the BBC all summer. I've been a cricket fan for years and years.
Any favourite players?
John Gleeson, Jack Simmons. I was sort of my off tweakers. I suspect I tried to model myself on those. There's all those players, and of course 81 will live long in the memory. I really love 5 days of a test and the acts that go in it, all the different movements throughout it, and the twists and the turns. And I remember I test. So I like sort of test match and village cricket. They're the two sort of side of the game that I follow. That I love. I can happily go and sit on the edge of a boundary of a village game and watch it. Equally, I'll also very happily go to all 5 days of a test if I can.
Oh, well, back to acting. We've got the new James Bond film out now, and I read that you auditioned for the James Bond role back in the 1980s.
Yeah, one of 100,000 people probably who went through the door. No, Bond would never have been me. I can imagine playing the Saint back in the day, but I think Bond is too roughy-tufty stuff, and I don't do stunts. I just do hand-to-hand irony. It's about as dangerous as I get. So
you don't think James Bond could be a clumsy character, really? No.
Yeah, and it's so anyway. That was just. All actors go up for things which they get and they don't get. So, I have no idea why I was seen for it. I suspect that Timothy Dalton had already been cast, and they wanted his signature. So they said, well, we're still seeing people. So they just sort of line up a whole load of no-hopers and just to persuade him to sign.
Well, how has COVID affected you in the last 18 months? Have you had lots of things cancelled, and are you now busy working again?
I did have a thing cancelled. I had a play. I don't want to take out a violin because everybody else in the theatre business is had the same. But I had a show which I'd been planning for about 5 years and doing tryouts of it down there, and we had a 12-week run. Got 3 weeks in before everything had to stop. It was a two-hander in verse with cartoons, and it was really good. It was going really well, and so that had to stop. I was hoping to be able to take it to festivals in Australia this January, February, March, but New Zealand. But that looks as though that's out of the question. It's a show which I will take away somewhere when it gets going again. Everything gets going again, and I've been doing I've been doing telly for the last few months on and off, and a lot of voice stuff in my home studio. And it throws up. It means you can work from home as well, which on the voices stuff, and it throws up sort of odd circumstances. I was doing a commercial, and the director was wherever he was, and he apologized suddenly. He said that he was very sorry. He said there was a mechanical noise behind him, and he said, "I'm very sorry." He said, "My mother's on the rowing machine." So it's that sort of thing could never happen in any other sort of circumstances, really. So it's been sort of voice stuff and television, and and at the moment I've been doing more Toast of London, which is a show that Channel 4 put on for 3 seasons, and the BBC have just taken it, which is it's been great to be going back to that, and doing a thing called The Larkins, which is a sort of reworking by Simon Nye of Men Behaving Badly fame and others. He has rewritten the H.E. Bates story, The Darling Buds of May. So it's called The Larkins, and I think it's coming out quite soon, but that's all to be revealed by ITV before long. And we're doing the Christmas special of that coming up. So yeah, there's TV has managed to work, and they test you, and just everybody carries on as normal. But theatre, although there are shows around, commercial theatre producers, I think, are pretty wary about the situation. Subsidised theatre seems to be braver because they can be. But it's still fairly turbulent, as you imagine.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for joining me on the Paddock and the Pavilion. Best wishes for the new film, The Fall, which is out on Sky Sports Racing in early October. I must also thank Nathan Horrocks from Equine Productions for introducing me to you to come on the podcast, and best of luck for the future. And your love of racing as well, and keep following the race and reading the Racing Post, as you said earlier. That's essential reading. Yeah. Thanks, Stephen. Thanks very much. Very good to meet you. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to The Paddock and the Pavilion. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and now on Instagram at The Pad and Pav. Don't forget, if you like the show, please do leave us a rating and review.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
Feel the whoa with Listerine at BJ's. You can save $2.50 now on Listerine products like Total Care Anti-Cavity Fluoride Fresh Mint Mouthwash or Cool Mint Pocket Packs Fresh Breath Strips at your nearest BJ's location. Experience the feeling of 1,000,000 germs zapped in seconds with Listerine. Discount available through December 24th. Save now only at BJ's.